May I request that we turn off all communication devices, including mobile telephones. Secondly, out to you, I apologize, we have handed out to you forms to be filled in about future lectures. We request that you fill that in and return it to the registration counter just as you go down for the cocktail reception. And finally, we have provided microphones, okay, at places where you're seated. And if you would like to ask a question, we request that you raise your hand. We will acknowledge your turn, and then when you are going to ask your question, kindly press the green button, okay? Ask your question and then turn button off. And we request that your questions be no more than a minute and a half. Okay? We thank you for your patience in that regard. And Assumption University, it is our pleasure to welcome you all to today's lecture. The progress of our program will be as follows. First, the President of Assumption University will address us, followed by the Chairman of the Peace Foundation, and then by the First Vice President of Kasikorn Thai Bank. I now would like to call upon Reverend Brother Bancha Senhiran, the President of Assumption University, to deliver a welcome address.
Monsignor Carlos Filipe Ximenes Belo, the title of Bishop of Laureate and Nobel Peace Prize 1996. Mr. Uwe Morawetz, Chairman of the Board of Directors of the International Peace Foundation. Kun Chantari Buranawet, the First Vice President of Kasikorn Bank. Distinguished colleagues and ladies and gentlemen. Today, I have the great pleasure and honor to welcome at Assumption University one of the most remarkable and meritorious figures in the quest for peace and justice in Southeast Asia of the last decennia, His Grace Bishop Carlos Filipe Ximenes Belo. Bishop Belo was born in 1948 in the then Portuguese colony of East Timor, and in 1973 he left for Europe, first to study in Lisbon, where he became a member of the Order of the Salesian Brothers. Later in Rome, where he was ordained a Catholic priest in 1980. He subsequently returned to East Timor, which in the meantime, and after a brief period of independence, had been occupied by Indonesia. In 1983, the Vatican appointed him as the apostolic administrator for the Timorese Diocese of Dili, thus making him the de facto leader of the Catholic Church in the East Timor. In 1988, he was ordained bishop. During the Indonesian occupation, the Bishop Belo became the moral voice of Timor. For his work towards a just and peaceful solution of the East Timor conflict, Bishop Belo was awarded the 1996 Nobel Peace, together with Jose Ram. His example acts as a beacon and moral compass for the many violent problems that are currently besieging so many parts of our world. Today, Bishop Belo will concentrate on the all-important role of education in the handling and prevention of such problems. I feel very much honor of his presence here, so I welcome him to Assumption University once again, and let us give him a big hand for his presence here today. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Reverend Brother Bancha. I now would like to call upon Mr. Uwe Morawetz, the Chairman of the International Peace Foundation here in Bangkok, to say a few words of welcome to our audience.
As a contribution to the decade for culture of peace and non-violence, Thailand has been chosen as the host country for the event series Bridges, Dialogues Towards a Culture of Peace, initiated by the International Peace Foundation, a non-political independent foundation under the common patronage of the 21 Nobel Peace Prize laureates based in Vienna. Thailand has been chosen for the following reasons. The Thai nation and its people, with their self-confidence, open-mindedness, and tolerance, could provide a creative pathway towards peace. Under the wisdom and spiritual leadership of His Majesty the King, as the shining example for inner and outer peace, a democratic Thailand has the ability to promote peace and the potential to stabilize the region. It has a rich, diversified network of national and international organizations, including business, diplomatic corps, media, and NGOs, which provide the ground for an enhanced intercultural dialogue. Bridges, Dialogues Towards a Culture of Peace, will be continued today with a keynote speech of Bishop Belo, a 1996 Nobel Laureate for Peace, who will address the topic Education for Peace. The series of 250 lectures and dialogues, seminars, workshops, and artistic performances, which started in November 2003, will then be further continued in Bangkok, Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, Chonburi, Kanchanaburi, Khon Kaen, and Nakhon Ratchasima until April 2005. During a one-year period of time, 27 Nobel laureates for peace, physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and economics, as well as other keynote speakers, will meet with decision makers here in Thailand, as well as with the general public, to promote the kingdom as a center for dialogue and international understanding. The multidisciplinary and pluralistic approach of the events program reflects that peace involves all parts of society. It involves awareness and social responsibility of politicians, the business community, scientists, artists, and the media. And since peace within ourselves, our families, and our environment starts in our minds and hearts, it involves every one of us. ผมรู้สึกซาบซึ้งที่คนไทยสนับสนุนและร่วมมือทำให้โครงการสานสัมพันธ์สู่สันติวัฒนธรรมได้เกิดขึ้นจริงๆซึ่งโครงการนี้ได้รับแรงบันดาลใจจากการได้เห็นพระบาทสมเด็จพระเจ้าอยู่หัวทรงงานหนักเพื่อสันติภาพและความมั่งคั่งของประสบนิกรรวมทั้งรักษาวัฒนธรรมขนบประเพณีอันงดงามและฉลองไว้ซึ่งศาสนาในโอกาสนี้ผมขอขอบคุณบิชอปเบโลบาทกและศิลปินทุกท่านที่ได้เดินทางมาร่วมและสนับสนุนกิจกรรมโดยไม่รับค่าตอบแทนใดๆและผมขอขอบคุณมหาวิทยาลัยอัสสัมชัญธนาคารกสิกรไทยผู้ให้การสนับสนุนและพันธมิตรที่ได้ให้ความร่วมมืออย่างดียิ่งบัดนี้ผมขอต้อนรับผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านเข้าสู่สันติวัฒนธรรมโดยการสรรเสวนาความเข้าใจและความเคารพซึ่งกันและกันร่วมกันในงานครั้งนี้และต่อไปขอบคุณครับ
Thank you, Mr. Morawetz. I now would like to welcome Kun Janjari Puranawet, the first Vice President of Kasikon Bank, to make a few remarks by way of welcoming the audience. Kun Janjari, please.
President of Assumption University, Chairman of the Board of Directors of International Peace Foundation, and distinguished guests. In celebrations of humanity without borders and admirations of Thailand as a peaceful country, Kasikon Bank is proud to sponsor speeches by 18 Nobel laureates for the next 5 months. Each Nobel laureate will deliver his or her keynote addresses at various universities all over Thailand as a part of the International Peace Foundation's Bridges Dialogues Towards a Culture of Peace project. On behalf of Kasikon Bank, I am honored to present Bishop Carlos Filipe Ximenes Belo, Nobel Laureate for Peace in 1996. Thank you.
Thank you, Kunjanjari. I now would like to request the three dignitaries to descend, to take your seats in front, okay? And ladies and gentlemen, we've been waiting for this moment, we've been planning on it, and now the man of the moment himself is with us. Please help me welcome His Grace Bishop Carlos Belo.
His Excellency, the President of Assumption University, Mr. Uwe, Chairman of International Foundation for Peace, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The education for peace has been in recent times a constant concern for the international community of the different religious denominations, solidarity groups, development groups, and the movements that are devoted to peace, justice, reconciliation, and the resolution of conflict by non-violent means. Therefore, the General Assembly of the United Nations proclaimed during Resolution 52 of 15 January 1998 that the year 2000 would be declared the International Year of Culture of Peace. In the same year, a group of laureates of the Nobel Peace Prize made a petition to the United Nations Organization that the decade of 2001-2010 be declared as the decade of culture of peace, a declaration to be implemented in all over the world. When proclaiming the year 2000 as International Year of Culture for Peace, the General Assembly of the United Nations designated UNESCO as the agency responsible for the promotion of the culture for peace, with the objective of promoting universal conscience based on the principle of freedom, justice, human rights, good government, and tolerance. Then I have to underline that not only UNESCO, but in this concrete moment also the International Foundation for Peace is promoting the culture for peace with this dialogue in different universities. The theme of culture for peace as in the international order is not a recent creation. As stated by the General Secretary of the United Nations, Mr. Kofi Annan, in his message at the beginning of the year 2000, I quote, "The main mandate of the United Nations is to protect future generations from the scars of war. It maintains as much validity today as in the time at which those words were written, which has been more than half a century ago. But true peace means much more than the absence of war. It is a phenomenon that involves economic development and social justice. It ensures the safety of the global atmosphere and the decreasing armament race. It means democracy, diversity, dignity, respect for human rights, and far much more, a lot more." End of the quotation. For people to be able to live in peace, it is necessary to create an atmosphere of peace, order, tolerance, and respect. A respect for every human being and for his or her ethnic, cultural, religious, and political identity. In this respect, a sense of a coexistence, solidarity, and cooperation among the people can only appear in a mind of a heart rooted in a culture of peace and respect for human rights. But what does this culture consist of? What does this peace consist of? All of you know the term cultura, the cultures. It derived from a Latin word cultus. The derivation of the Latin verb colere, with the application for several domains. For example, to cultivate fields, colere agros, to cultivate letters, colere litteras, or to cultivate friendship, colere amicitiam. And according to the Cicero, a Latin poet, the word culture itself designates cultivating our own humanity, our humanitas. Culture is what makes a person human. When people become human beings through his or her education, and in this context, culture designates every action that a human being does in order to better themselves. It means education through physical, intellectual, moral, and religious capabilities to build up a civilization of love. For the Catholic Church, this culture of peace indicates all of the things through which human beings thicken and develop multiple capacities of his or her spirit and body. He or she makes an effort to accomplish, through study and work, the betterment of their own world and its institutions, which will meet the needs of the civil community. With the passing of time, their experience and aspirations will become a benefit to all humanity, to the humanity as a whole. This individual exists in several cultures around the world, working and succeeding through different means to establish habits, religion, laws, judicial institutions, science, the arts, and the cultivation of beauty. Not only do several cultures exist, they have spread through all the world due to the progress of not only material science, but also human and social science through improved means of international communication and coordination. In this area of globalization, despite the existence of regional national cultures, there exists the universal culture of humanity, a culture which understands and expresses the unity of mankind and best knows how to respect the peculiarities and traditions of its many different cultures. It is in this context of universal human culture in a globalized world that we should build a more peaceful and fraternal society through the practice of peace and justice through education for peace. Despite the yearning of constructing a more loving and understanding world, there are those who try to create a culture of hate, violence, and war. Because of this fact, much of mankind is left to be tormented by hunger, poverty, and illiteracy. Many men and women today live in social and psychological servitude. Political, social, economic, racial, and ideological conflict still persist. War has not been totally eliminated, as has been stated by the Council Vatican II in Gaudium Spes number 8. I quote, "Great discrepancies appear between the races and several social groups among nations, rich and poor, derive from the ambitions of those who wish to spread their own ideologies along with the collective selfishness to certain individuals in power. From these come distrusts and hatred which lead to conflicts of which innocent human beings are the unfortunate victims." We know that the 20th century was a century of two world wars. World War I from 1914 to 1918 and World War II from 1939 to 1945. There are also countless of conflicts in every part of the world, in Asia, in Africa, in South America, even in Europe. According to the study in 2000 by the annual of the Institute of Peace Investigation in Stockholm, 27 armed conflicts of great scale occurred in 1999 alone. There were conflicts which were between the armed forces or two or more governments, or between a government and the rebel groups, and which were each responsible for the death of at least 1,000 individuals through 1 year of violence. Behind these numerous conflicts that threaten peace, there exist other deeper factors that can create seeds of hatred which lead to violence. The nuclear proliferation, the confrontation among world power blocs, mainly West and East, the imbalance of world power between the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere. The nations in the Northern Hemisphere, rich and developed, which enjoys economic, social, and cultural well-being, coexisting with the nations in the Southern Hemisphere, poor and underdeveloped, where legions of the impoverished, employed, disparate, and destitute exist and who can easily be recruited by multinational corporations of thieves, religious fanatics, and terrorists. Even in the Northern Hemisphere, there exists great poverty and desperation that arise from the slums of the great urban centers of the world, areas which also produce a fair amount of the world's environment problems through pollution and the exhaustion of natural resources, all current problems which test the presence of international peace. There exists the great international mafia of influential individuals who, through private armies, dominate drug cartels, the extraction and illegal trade of raw materials, the clandestine immigration of weapons and of the people, the smuggling and laundering of money, all of which constitutes a danger for the stability and the safety of the world and its people. In spite of these unfortunate realities, we cannot fall into discouragement and leave the world alone to face extermination. On the contrary, we have to row against the current, falling back upon the weapons of understanding, solidarity, and a collective responsibility, infecting the world with a new mentality of love, compassion, and peace by developing this new culture of peace. According to the former Director General of UNESCO, Dr. Zamora, he has this intuition, I quote, "For us to transform a war culture into a peace culture, we have to change the values, the attitudes, and the behaviors of the past. Instead of using the Roman maximum, si vis pacem para bellum, if you want peace, you must prepare for war, we have to say, if you want peace, you must prepare for peace and try to build in your heart, in your everyday life. However, for the people to create and possess a peace culture, it is essential that they be educated for the attainment of peace and human rights." Now let me speak a little about the peace. All we know that this word, in English peace, and French paix, in Italian pace, Portuguese, Spanish word paz, I don't know in your language Thai, all derived from the Latin word pax, pacis. According to the great number of historians, the concept of the pax was born in Roman Empire. It indicated in time when there was no wars, civil wars or civil conflicts. It's more rightly labeled Pax Romana. Linked to the concept of Pax, the Romans cultivated also some concepts like concordancia, honor, virtus, and Saint Augustine, Catholic bishop of 4th century, defined pax as the peacefulness of the order. In the Judeo-Christian context, The corresponding word in Hebrew was shalom. Even in Arab, at least in Indonesia, we talk assalamu alaikum. A word that flows from the root shelemut. It means perfection, fullness. In the Bible, shalom appears associated with a state of harmony, peacefulness, and prosperity. Shalom also means blessing, manifestation of the divine grace, justice, truth, happiness, and well-being. And according to the prophet Isaiah, peace is the fruit of justice. For us, the Christian, the Catholic, the true peace comes from God. So God is the Prince of Peace. True peace is Jesus Christ. And the peace is the fruit of Holy Spirit. After his resurrection, Jesus Christ said, "Peace be with you." It is him who gives us peace, because he said, "I leave you peace, I give you my peace." In this context of Christian spirituality, spiritual theology distinguishes between individual or internal peace and social or external peace. Individual peace is the peacefulness originating from a spiritual domain derived from the internal passion and consciousness of being in communion and friendship with God, with others, and with nature. Social peace is a calm coexistence in social order. So, from the Catholic Church, when it affirms that this peace, the peace is not merely absence of war, or not merely the balance between powers, adverse powers, it means more than internal peace, peace with God and peace within ourselves. According to the Pope VI, peace means development. In this perspective, peace means the eradication of injustice and inequalities of the social economic order, eradication of jealousies and of the distrust and pride that is propagated between nations, which remain a constant threat to peace. For people to live in the same conditions, it is vital that an international community provide to each individual the essential social needs such as food, education, health care, and employment, which presently exist in the developed countries, and it is denied to underdeveloped countries by coming to the aid of the world's impoverished refugees and immigrants alike along with their families. Pope John XXIII in the encyclical Pacem in Terris declares, I quote, "Mutual international relationships, like individual relationships, should not be constructed by force or violence, but by reason. That is the base of truth, justice, and of active solidarity. Relationships among nations should be based on this principle. Truth demands that all types of racism be eliminated. Create a new beginning where the dignity of each individual is recognized. Each person, therefore, has a right to exist, to ownership of the necessary resources which will eradicate his material dependence on others. Nations can differentiate their own culture, civilization, and economic development. This, however, can never justify the tendency of one to impose their belief superiority wrongly on the masses. International relationships is the base of justice, means that the state should recognize the mutual right of each other and in turn cooperate fairly in the world development. States are entitled to existence, to develop, and the supply of necessary resources for achieving. In this base of active solidarity, derived from truth and justice, Nations develop international relationships in a dynamic of social solidarity, politics, culture, and in turn offer us a real view of the world. Let us now talk about education for peace. The education for peace is an education that should show another vision, contrasts to war, striving to avoid the formation of the social assumption that the war is normal and inevitable, and construct the belief that there are no violent ways to resolve conflicts. So, the education for peace and human rights seeks everyone. Its aims is not so much to reach literary or scientific objectives, but to form the whole human individual in the values of ethics and citizenship. It should have an underlying educational aim to an ideal of society as a starting point and as a goal to reach. We believe that the aim of a serious educational system of ethical values could be directed towards an ideal for a personalized, democratic, participatory, solidary, and decentralized society. The education for peace should be an effort to consolidate a new way to see, to understand, and to live in the world, beginning with ourselves and eventually others, horizontally, forming a net, giving trust, safety, and authority to the people and the societies, making changes, overcoming the distrust, helping to mobilize and to overcome the difference among us. According to a statement declaration 33 of UNESCO, I quote, "The word education designates the global process of society for which the people and the social groups learn consciously inside the national and international community, and in the benefit of these, produce the integral development of their personalities, their capacities and attitudes, their aptitudes and their knowledge." So still, according to UNESCO declaration, the terms understanding, cooperation, and peace should be considered as all indivisible, founded in the beginning of the friendly relationships between people and states, with social and political systems different, and in respect for the man's rights and of the fundamental freedoms. For this education for peace, let me indicate the areas of the education. Peace culture implicates for education in these possible areas: the education of democratic citizenship, human rights, democracy and tolerance, economic development and social maintainability, peace and international safety, participatory communication and free circulation of information and knowledge, ethical values, practice of virtues such as justice, solidarity, generosity. These are some areas we can educate the young people for this. And other extents of education can be those that were declared in the manifesto of several laureates of Nobel Peace Prize in the year 2000. It is to respect life, to reject violence, to share with others, to listen, to understand, to conserve the planet, and to rediscover solidarity. The methodology, the possible methodology for this education for peace, it is more dialogical. The methods in the education for peace have been coherent with the contents and values that it intends, having been horizontal, that is open to participative dialogues, that encourages solidarity and cooperation. The programs should be elaborated in a way that motivates people to learn and reflect about social realities, political, culture, and economics in open, sincere, and permanent dialogue, in order to learn, to discern, and to combat all forms of discrimination in schools, in families, in nations, in the world. Who will be involved in this education for peace? All of us. So the education for peace and for a peace culture in the world today should include all the citizens of the world, individuals, families, schools, universities, religions, media or social communications, and the states. The first place, the individual, to indicate and to form for solidarity, to respect men and women's rights, to work for others, to respect other people, and to work for peace, peace in family, in household, in society, peace with God, and peace with the environment. The role of the family in education for peace. The parents, they have also this important role for educating their children in the ethical values, for tolerance, for patience, for justice and generosity. Schools and universities and other educational institutions, they are also represent spaces of inclusive education and of social intervention that can infuse in the students and graduates an integral formation for democratic citizenship. Religion and culture and churches or different religious denominations, they have the responsibility of educating humanity for this, for the sense of the absolute, for dialogue, tolerance, fraternity, peace, and harmony. Religion is only authentic when it develops the respect for life, for human beings' dignity, and the dignity of created things. As for the Catholic Church, it should be willing to collaborate with all religions, other religious denominations, and with all individuals willingly to serve the whole human family in a base of frank dialogue, mutual respect, and in concordance. The role of the states in this field, education for peace. The states have the duty and the responsibility of defending democratic values of good government and of transparency in the public business sector. The states have the duty of promoting the democratization of education and other conditions so that education accomplishes through equality of opportunities, the eradication of economic, social, and cultural inequalities, the development of personality and the spirit of tolerance, of mutual understanding, of solidarity, and of responsibility for the social progress and for the democratic participation in the collective society. There are also the role of the multilateral organisms in the world. The multilateral organisms should guarantee the protection of human rights, the protection of minorities, the prevention of armed conflict, and environmental protection. Finally, we appeal that there should be an international community working for this education for peace. To build the peace and to make possible a culture of peace in the world, all of us should make the great effort to create an international organism capable of repressing violence and cooperating in the equal progress of all people. These are praiseworthy institutions already existing that work for peace in the world. In this sense, we ask that the Organization of United Nations is improved in order to serve all humanity better. As conclusion, let me conclude that the education for peace is an education for global citizenship, and this implicates to favor the understanding of global interdependence and the need to bridge the structural divisions between rich and poor, the developed north and undeveloped South, between West and East, between Christianity and Islam, or Islam and Buddhism, Buddhism or Hinduism, and other traditional religions. To overcome these differences and the distrust that still reigns in the world, the program of peace culture in the world and the education for peace and for human rights can contribute humanity's ethical renewal in this globalized world in the beginning of this millennium. For your attention, thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Grace. I'm sure that the audience has quite a few questions to ask. And so may I now request the audience to ask your questions. Don't forget to switch on your microphone and to keep your question within a minute and a half time. Please. Yes. Please press the green button. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your inspiring talk. Could you, if we look at some of the past movements for reform of political systems, we see some movements for non-violence, like the movements of Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr. Do you think in the current world there are any circumstances when non-violent means should be given up in the pursuit of violent mechanisms? Or can we purely rely on non-violent means for transformation of societies? Thank you.
Thank you. Naturally, using violence, it's easier than using non-violence. As human beings, we immediately reacted to oppose or to take in our hands arms to combat, to fight. But using non-violent means reasonably, with patience, with perseverance, and with respect for others, it takes time. So I think that we must educate the young people for not to react immediately, but to dominate themselves. Yes. And only with dialogue, only with respect. It takes time, but with perseverance and patience, I think that it will brings fruit.
Thank you, Your Grace. Yes. I will take the question from the gentleman right there. Go ahead.
What is different between the peace and security? Is one aspect. The second, you mentioned it here for the root of the peace for certain language, for English, for French, Spanish, Portuguese, and so on. And then I want to know also why not there is not the Chinese language or Hindu's language. And besides that, you also referred some kind of reference for peace for Judaism and Christianity, whereas for the Hinduism and Buddhism and the Islam. And thank you very much.
What is the first question? Excuse me, I don't understand.
I said, what's the difference between the peace and security? Thank you very much.
Well, I'm not a military strategy to say, to define, but security relates more to the security of a state, security of a nation, or security of one barrio, environmental, through under the physical point of view. But peace is more internal. Natural security also development and it sustain the peace. But even living, the man or woman of peace, even in the conflict area, in the conflict situation, he can't live in peace because he has this relationship with God and he has peace inside. if he doesn't have security around him. In my opinion, maybe you are different, yours is different. The second about some different words in Iran, in Greek, no? I didn't quote other language because I don't know Chinese, I don't know Arab, I don't know other language. No? I study in the Western country, and maybe I am habituated with these words. But maybe there are also, I think that all the founders, and the Buddha, and Muhammad, and Jesus Christ, they are also, we can say, people, a person of peace. So I think that their teaching, their doctrine is full of peace. Only that we, now we're the living people, the followers or the believers, no? We didn't respect the ideal, the doctrine, the message of our founders, and we fight among ourselves. So I think that all the religions, they have also the teaching about peace.
Thank you. There was one question. Yes, please go ahead.
Bishop, thank you for your presentation. I wonder if you could share with us a little story that would help us understand how you experienced peace, life in peace and for peace, and that you were able to stand firm in your experience in Delhi, in Timor. Thank you.
An anecdote from your own experience.
So that we can feel the life that was there, that you live, and that you're able to express it in ways that you were able to, you were recognized for what you have done.
I think that to tell now the story is very sad. So I don't like to make you participate of this suffering. But anyhow, to work for peace is not easy. Mainly in a conflict situation like in East Timor, where I lived some years ago, in a concrete situation of a territory occupied by others, and then we have the military machine looked after everybody, watching and hearing. But the main objective of our work is how to respect the people, to tell others to respect the human dignity, even poor, even women or child. Everybody has its rights, So we have to respect human dignity, human being. And the second is that as people, the people of East Timor, even a small one, it has its own identity, culture, religious, historical, social identity. So if we individuals, we have the right to exist, even the small people, the poor people, they have also right to exist. So for this, I didn't fight. My struggle was not a political one, was not by force, by arms, but mainly to convince both sides that it was necessary to sit down for dialogue. And for me, it was the experience that to solve the problem of East Timor, let the people talk. Let the people choose if they like to become part of Portugal, or Australia, or Japan, or to become independent. So the people has a right to define its destiny. For that, I was criticized, there was persecution, and my, post, office, telephone, everything controlled. And there was 3 attempts to kill me, but thanks to God, I still survived. And I'm happy that people are already independent. Not totally, because politically independent, maybe it's easy, but culture, economic, independent, it's still to be done, to be accomplished. So I think that only with perseverance we can fight, we can defend the human rights, the human dignity, and mainly using our head and with reasonable attitude, with non-violent means.
Thank you. We will go to Professor Meity and then to you. Okay, Professor Meity, please.
Children and teenagers nowadays are growing up with less hope, more fear, and more anger. Many feel distressed, confused, and unsafe. Some come to school with some form of weapons to protect themselves. Suicides, violence, car bombs, fights, attacks have become common incidents. In your opinion, how and through what means can we educators, teachers, and parents help regain strength in young minds and reinstall their hope for the future? Would you please? Thank you.
Well, it is a difficult task. And I think that all of us, we have to make a promise to dedicate ourselves 100% for educating the young generations, our children. With dialogue, with our example, I think that the example of the parents are important. With our work, with our sacrifice, and in the schools. But I think that it is now in this modern society, it is very, very difficult, you know, with also this mass media, with consumerism, with modernity and technology. In my opinion, that we have to underline in this environment, we go back to the ethical values. That in some places we forget. This is my opinion. The values, the ethics. We have to go back to paideia, no? To this real education of human being.
Thank you, Your Grace. Please.
Your Grace, as far as I understood from your speech, I see that peace needs education. Now, how your foundation, or better, how we may reach our schools, colleges, universities with this education for our young people?
I only give one example that I found it very, very interesting. Last December, with Nobel Laureates, we met in Rome in our annual meeting. And immediately, we had a meeting with 2,500 students of university, some university and college in Rome, that they are organizing Olympics between the students to create peace and solidarity and fraternity among the university, among the schools. Well, it is necessary. Maybe it is at the level of a school or university, how to establish a subject for teaching peace, human rights, and justice. So there should be an hour, 2 hours per week for that. If we have religion, why we cannot have also some hours about universal citizenship, about democracy, about peace? I think that it's necessary for the school, the staff, to think of and to organize. There is a possibility or not to educate the people. And then let the students talk about peace, about tolerance, about human rights. And I think I notice my role to suggest, to indicate, but there is possibility how to give this example of cooperation among classes, among races, and the dialogue at the level of the school, at the level of the class. Through dialogue, through cooperation, through respect, and also through knowledge, theoretical knowledge about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the other conclusions of different summits about peace or justice. Yes. So it is also a cultural formation about concepts of peace.
Thank you, Your Grace. Please, Reverend Father.
Thank you, Your Grace, for sharing. I am Father Vichai. I've been working with Justice and Peace Commission for many, many years. I think I have experienced violence different from Your Grace, very much different, but I experienced a kind of culture of violence. And we have struggling, as one of the professors just mentioned, a lot of problem that is happening. My big question is, can we start building peace in this deep down in the culture of violence without changing something, or without, can a seed sprout from this mess? In environment, violence, culture, and consumerism, a lot of things that is covering this. Do peace have enough power to sprout from this? Listen to your guests, I feel much hope. I do. But how? That is something that, of course, you just mentioned that we have to still struggling. My question have been shared by many, many people here. So it seems that something have been released from my heart. But my still big question is, to begin, how to begin? Because we are all overwhelmed with culture of violence. That would be my question.
Thank you, Father. I think that order also from the forum can share. But my opinion, Father, I told her that we cannot be desperate in this situation of violence, of war, of, well, there is still hope, no? And then for our history of Christianity, no? Jesus Christ, he began the religion only with 12 disciples, a small community in the world. So I think that in our reality, sometimes we become only light a candle, but we light, we expand light. This is important. And not only that, when I talk about the different groups that can be involved, let us become first men or women of peace. And then in dialogue with others, so let us also build up nets, not only among us, in our family, in our environment or school, but with others, other culture, other religions, other people. I think that we have made this big union, no? Not of trade, but union of peace. Little by little, not immediately, we cannot see immediately the results, but we are trying to cultivate and to put the seeds in the hearts and of the people. But maybe in the forum that all somebody more brilliant can share this difficult of our beloved Father.
Thank you, Your Grace. Yes, Father, please. And then the gentleman behind, and then you. Just a moment, please.
Thank you very much, Your Grace. I'm Father Vic from Sanctus. A change in values, a change in culture, perhaps. But most of the time, it will also come in terms of dollars and euros. And we see that through the years, a lot more NGOs are coming out more expressive of their position in terms of standing up and defending the rights of the poor, which obviously rocks the boat and therefore the lack of peace in the whole process. So I wonder if in the work for peace and the education for peace, have we found through these years some kind of a common denominator where it will not necessarily be tied up with dollars or with money or whatever? Is there a common denominator in working for peace? Thank you.
I support fully your idea, Father, to work for peace. And naturally we have to strengthen all these initiatives, these efforts for working together for peace. I don't know if it is I answered fully the question.
Thank you, Your Grace. The gentleman just behind, go ahead, please.
The theme of your speech is education. The people of Iraq do not have peace because of invasion. You did not include your examples. When I just look your speech here, I saw Sudan, Rwanda, something like that. But my eyes did not see Iraq. What is the reason for your exclusion of Iraq? Thank you.
Well, we are living the problem of Iraq, and we are praying for people for Iraq. We don't forget Iraq. As you know, as the Nobel Peace Prize winner, I was against the invasion of Iraq. That, according to me, there were others means to solve the problem. First of all, with diplomatic way, with dialogue approach, and peaceful solution. But since Iraq already invaded, and during these years we have witnessing the death of many innocent people, we only hope that, so hopefully in time, the Iraq people are able to solve the problem. So we pray for this election for Sunday, that the Iraq government and Iraq people, they can sit down together, opposition and government, because they are sovereign people, and let the United Nations, the United States, England, let the people of Iraq to solve the problems. And I hope that the international community, after the elections, after the legal and formal government, let us also help Iraq, like showing our solidarity, as we see in this day, solidarity with the international community for tsunami victims. Also, we have to show our solidarity, continuous solidarity for the people of Iraq.
Thank you, Your Grace. I realize that there are a lot more questions, and what I would suggest is that we have a cocktail reception after this, and between a cocktail or two, please do meet His Grace the Bishop and ask him your question. But for now, I think we've got to bring the question and answer session to a close. At this point of time, may I request the President Emeritus, Reverend Brother Prateep Martin Komalmat, to say a few words of thanks to His Grace the Bishop on his brilliant intervention.
In the name of all who are present here, may I offer you, Your Grace, our sincere thanks and appreciation for your speech. Your message is a challenge to us all. Challenge to us, scholar, professor, as well as student, and all men and women of goodwill. If we have sincerity of heart, we shall be able to cooperate with your suggestion. Education for peace, as you have said, doesn't simply mean the absence of war, but it means positively the existence of social justice, peace, human rights, no discrimination. And education for peace is a challenge to all universities and institutes of higher education. It is that how to educate our students to mutually respect one another, being able to appreciate the culture of one another and accept the spirit of tolerance, of fundamental freedom, of solidarity, cooperation, democracy, no discrimination, because all men and women are equal before God, and that which means equality to us all. May I also take this opportunity to thank all participants in the discussion. You have contributed a lot to make this session a lively and interesting one. On this occasion too, I should very much like to thank the Peace Foundation or the Bridges for having sponsored the Monsieur Belo to come here, as well as all the host sponsors you see, the Cathay, the South Africa, the Thai Farmer Bank, and all that. We are grateful to them all. So finally, may the Lord God bless your work, Monsignor, so that wherever you go as an apostle of peace, you will be able to inspire other people to work for a betterment of all of us all. Thank you very much for coming here. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Brother Martin. And once more, one more big applause for His Grace Bishop Belo. Can we once more give him a very big applause? I'd like to call upon Reverend Brother Bancha Senhiran, the President of Assumption University, to hand over a little to... Thank you, Reverend Brother Bancha. And now we will have a brief photograph session, and then, even as we do that, you are very welcome to participate in the cocktail reception in the concourse of our conference center. I'd like to call upon Reverend Brother Bancha, Reverend Brother Martin, Father John, Mr. Uwe, the Vice Presidents, okay, from Assumption University, Brother Cyril as well. Please join in for a photograph, yes. His Excellency Amnoy Wirawan. Okay. Please, for a group photo.